from the Catholic Underground.
Today on the show, a mysterious priest in Missouri, a naughty tourist in Spain, a desolate future in TV land, and a practical plan for evangelization. Our picks of the week and so much more. The Catholic Underground starts now. Alrighty, it's time for the Catholic Underground, so come out of your TARDIS and be with us for an hour or so. We're your weekly Catholic guide to the digital continent. It's episode number 237. I'm Father Chris Decker. If you're listening live, you can join us at CatholicUnderground.tv and get your chat on with us. A special welcome to our listeners around the world on the radio, on the internet, and on YouTube. Joining me this week, once again, he is here. Father Ryan Humphreys. He is the rector of the Minor Basilica of the Immaculate Conception in North Louisiana. Hello, Father.
Hello, Father, and hello, world.
Yes, indeed. Kathleen Lee, a teacher at St. Joseph's Academy in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. She is our resident faith ninja. Hello, Kathleen.
Hello.
Jeff Blackwell is the technical director of the Catholic Underground. He is commandant of the Jeff Star 1 near-Earth orbit satellite thing.
Yeah.
Hey, Jeff.
Every week, as a matter of fact. Good to be here.
That's right. We beam him down in his brand new beamer every week.
Oh, yeah.
And then Mary Kate Taylor, who is our video director and part-time literary critic here at the Catholic Underground.
Right.
Hey, Mary Kate.
Glad to be here.
Yes, indeed. Well, the blogs are abuzz with this mysterious priest of the Missouri highways. Now, this is quite a story because it has been making secular news. It has been making news just about everywhere. On Sunday, August 4th, Katie Lentz was struck head-on by a drunk driver in rural Missouri. And rescue workers arrived, but she was trapped inside her vehicle. And after 45 minutes of work, nearly 50 workers just couldn't get her out. And she had broken bones, serious injuries. And so she just asked somebody to pray for her. So, right on cue, a, quote, silver-haired priest dressed in a black clerical suit, unquote, walked up to the window with his oils out, the oil stocks, you know, the anointing of the sick. The priest usually has a little bitty vial that has oil in it. And he prayed and he anointed her. Now, everyone immediately felt calm and peaceful. And then the priest says, quote, the tools will now work and you'll be fine, unquote. Right then, a bigger truck with more powerful tools arrived. The men went to work to unload the truck. And when they walked 200 feet back to the crash, the priest had completely vanished. He had disappeared. The roads were blocked several hundred feet away, and though over 80 pictures were taken of the crash, the priest doesn't appear in any of them. The only thing that there is what the people have described him in several sketches that have been done. And he's not a priest of the local diocese. All the witnesses attest to seeing him, but nobody knew him. So, who was he? Was he an angel? What do you think? Was he a priest bilocating? Some people, if you're looking at Facebook, they show an early picture of Pope Francis.
Yeah.
And they say, that artist rendering looks a little bit like him.
Yeah, that's interesting. They had an artist rendering.
Yes.
And
people describing, I guess, him.
But his hair was short, but yet they said silver.
That's right. Now, St. Gian Vianney, of course, is another one that they're suggesting it might be. So could it be a priest bilocating, or maybe Gian Vianney returning for a good deed? Father, this is really interesting. What are your thoughts about it?
Well, as much as the world would like to say, no, you have to have some logical explanation, I mean, it just feels like in a time when sin abounds, grace abounds all the more.
Right.
And I wonder if it's not a time when the Lord is going to start working some miracles. And I wonder if there's not a saint or two waiting in the wings, bilocating. Padre Pio was known to bilocate. There's a lot of evidence to that effect. And I'm wondering if there's not a saint or two waiting in the wings, preparing or being prepared by the Lord to do pretty great work in the world. And, Missouri is as obscure a place to start as any.
And that's my thought, is, of course, in every age where a decline begins to occur within a culture, the Lord raises up saints. He begins to do strange and wonderful things so that the world might take notice, so that the Lord can once again for want of a better phrase, assert his glory, if you will, in a country, in a nation, in a world that has special effects. Well, the Lord is the ultimate special effects technician, and he can do these beautiful, powerful, wonderful things. Kathleen, are you going to cover this on Monday in school?
I think it might be something that we definitely talk about. But what I think was so interesting about this article was that they all said he was immediately recognizable as a Catholic priest.
Yeah, black clerical suit.
And the collar, that, you know, and I think it's so interesting and so beautiful. What a testament to this visible witness of our religious.
Yeah. And if he was an angel, or if he was a bilocating priest, a holy man, how beautiful and appropriate it is that he would be presented as a priest. And the cool thing about it is, I wonder if it is an angel, I wonder if it might not be Raphael. Because, as you know, in the Old Testament, it was the archangel Raphael that was the healer, you know, the one that brought God's unction, God's healing.
Right.
And so, of course, we don't know exactly how angels appear and how they do what they do and what forms they take and that sort of thing. But I just, in my head, it seems neat that if it was the archangel Raphael, that the Lord would allow him to be clothed as a priest and to give a sacrament. I just think that's kind of cool.
Yeah. And that's the one thing that makes me doubt very much that it was an angel.
Right.
Because a non-corporeal being can never would never be able to give the sacraments. The sacraments
Correct.
are not mystical things. And
that's
so
right.
That's why it makes me think that this was in fact some saint bilocating, or frankly a manifestation of Satan, because that's the only two options. Because you know the sacraments are not something that the mystical and spiritual world take lightly.
Right. Yeah. There are only two types of spirits: the Holy Spirit and evil spirit. You know,
the other guys.
The other guys. That's right. So yeah, it very well. In fact, I was thinking about that angels. The only thing, as you say, angels can't dispense sacraments. That's what priests do.
Now here's
they can't even be extraordinary ministers of Holy Communion.
That's true. Angels. Well, yeah.
Now here's the question: was the girl that was actually in the accident? She was Catholic, so she was indeed Catholic, or
presumably
was she just asking for prayers?
She received the anointing of the sick, and
Okay,
and if it was a bilocating priest, then I would presume that bilocating priest would know that she needed. The priest signal went up. And
I just think it's so interesting that it's getting so much secular attention, because it's such a manifestation of Catholicism as the way to healing and the way to
But that's
peace.
The awesome way that God works, isn't it? That's the awesome way that God works, is how well you can bring the sacraments into the forefront by using a horrific traffic collision like this to show forth God's power and God's glory. I think that's awesome. So we certainly offer a prayer for Katie Lentz and for her recovery, and also for all of those who have had a strange and wonderful thing done that day. And I'm sure it will probably bring some people back to the church. That
a lot of witnesses.
May have been away, you know? Yeah, so we turn from the miraculous to the downright naughty. Isn't that right, Kathleen?
I don't know why I get these stories, but
the word
okay.
naughty.
Yes, I when I read it, I was like, oh wait, what? So anyway, a woman has her phone stolen, but the perp doesn't disable the Dropbox.
That's right. So Dropbox is the file sharing utility that allows you to automatically upload your iPhone photos to it.
Yeah. So she did what any sensible victim would do, and she turned his photos into a Tumblr, which is excellent. She was a partier in Ibiza, which I'm just gonna guess that's how you say it, but it's actually an island in the Mediterranean Sea near Spain. She had her phone stolen from the beach less than about an hour after she got there. And rather than declare her revenge, get a Lycra suit and embrace a life of supervillainy.
That's right.
Very tempting idea.
She could have done that.
Yeah, absolutely. She used the Dropbox photo uploader to feature the thief's photo roll. And you can actually find the Tumblr at, which I've looked at, it's pretty awesome, Life of a Stranger Who Stole My Phone. .tumblr.com, and that's Tumblr, TUMBLR, not ER.
Yeah.
So that's Life of a Stranger Who Stole My Phone.tumblr.com.
Can we put this in the show notes?
Yeah.
We can. The language is a little saucy, but you know.
Oh yeah, that is I guess that's a good word for it.
Yeah.
So use caution.
She didn't get her phone back, but she's trying to actually sell merchandise with these photos to buy a new phone.
Really?
Which is pretty awesome.
That's right. So you know, if you're the perpetrator, you're the guy that stole the phone in Ibiza, and all of a sudden you see people walking around the boardwalk or the mall with your picture.
Yeah.
This is whenever, you know, karma is you know what, because you think you're doing the deed that you're going to get away with, but you just don't know how to use tech. This is why it's important that we have every
Thank
now
you.
and then.
That's
You
right.
know,
Yeah.
that's why we do what we do. Not so that you can go steal things,
No.
but so that you know how to use your technology. Because Kathleen, that's important.
I mean, but there's some pretty interesting. There's him having tea, him on the beach, him in front of some fancy cars.
He kind of likes the nicer things in life. This guy.
Folding clothes. It's very nice. He's trying on some outfits. It's good.
Is there any of him making the duck face that everybody likes to make in their
No,
pictures?
but there might be some selfies involved.
Okay.
What about
the guy
Harlem?
is in Dubai, so he's not a Westerner, and so
Yeah. So he wouldn't be doing the Harlem Shake.
No, no, presumably not. Anyway, so Kathleen, keep your Dropbox enabled on your phone.
I don't even know what the Dropbox is.
Oh, you gotta. It's. Thank you.
I mean, I
Bobby
know.
Chris.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. I know of the Dropbox, but I don't know if I. Okay, I'm just gonna stop. Yes, I will keep it enabled.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea.
Good answer.
Oh, Kathleen.
From the Catholic underground.
Alrighty, it says something about how messy the world is, that somebody wants a t-shirt with a silly photo on it just because that photo had 15 seconds of internet fame. Apparently, television also has something to say about where we are as a society, and of course TV always does. And apparently, Father Ryan, where we are as a society, if you look anywhere on TV and in movies, is post-apocalyptic. Isn't that right?
quote, flesh-eating zombies, children's spines implanted with harnesses as obedience devices, the pursuit of cheap green energy triggering the neutralization of the global electricity grid, the display of the American flag as a declaration of rebellion, end quote. Those are the shows that are topping the ratings right now. And for nerds like you and me, Father, sci-fi has always kind of been an indicator of the way that we perceive our own future. Remember in the 60s and the 90s, it was very utopian. Star Trek told a world of a future world that had no war, no need for money, no poverty, no disagreement of any sort.
Right. It was awful glossy.
Oh, yeah, everything was
things
wonderful.
had been figured out.
Everything was in beautiful sans fonts.
That's right.
But in the 1970s and 1980s, everything got dark and foreboding. Blade Runner and Star Wars were stories of evil world governments destroying human freedom. And the only way to overcome that was small bands of rebels that were bent on violent disobedience.
Yeah, like Max Headroom. Do you remember that one?
Oh, yeah. Sure did.
And so even after 9/11, sci-fi, has started to kind of shift toward evil from without. So in the 90s, there was a lot of this kind of everything's going to be great. But now we're starting to see, after 9/11, the idea that evil comes from without. War of the Worlds, Cloverfield, aliens and catastrophic diseases. The stuff was there, and they were reflective of our fear about what we didn't know. But now, 2013, the sci-fi that we're seeing seems to have similar themes, but it's a lot darker, in that it reveals a belief that evil is not so much going to come from without, but that real, true evil is going to come from within.
Yeah.
And in fact, that bears out a great deal of hope for Christians, because that's where Christian evangelization begins.
That's true. That's even what the Lord says. He says that it's not what is without that causes us to sin, but it's the stuff that comes from within, right?
Yeah, that's devastating. So, the three shows that are really booming right now that we want to talk about are Walking Dead. Yep. I know one of Father Chris's favorite shows.
No, thank you.
Falling Skies, a show about aliens, and Revolution. Also, Under the Dome, Defiance, and Continuum are getting some attention, and each in their own way highlights the failure of our society and our government and our corporations really to do anything other than be evil. And in each of those shows, there's the lone hero or the small group, and that's the character to watch. And in most of those cases, or in some of those cases, the hero is actually started off evil and now sees the light. And so is fighting against the much more attractive, even like Serenity, the much more beautiful and utopian looking, but under the surface, evil authority figure.
So what we would have considered in the 90s, that Star Trek utopia that everybody wanted to be a part of, now there's something lurking within that seeming utopia.
Right, there's something evil lying beneath.
And of course, that was a big theme of Serenity.
That whole show was here is the perfect, beautiful society, the alliance, but then there's really just truly evil because, those are the evil men with the blue gloves are coming to destroy us.
That's right.
And so the ragtag, poorly dressed, poorly fed rebels.
That's right. Only people with stubble need apply. Yeah, exactly. And so I guess the real question is, that's 6 shows that you mentioned right there, and that's not including Firefly and Serenity. So if this really is an indicator of what's going on in our society, what do these particular trends mean? I mean, what do they mean for our society? I don't know.
I think they mean that we're desperately hungry for heroes.
That could also be a reason for all the superhero movies that we're seeing. Because even Man of Steel was kind of dystopian as well, or it became that way once they blew up everything.
I think too, what you're seeing with certain shows like The Walking Dead, for example.
Yeah.
You're talking about how you seem to have a great emphasis on the individual.
Yep.
Also the individual family unit as
Yep.
foundational to society, because much of The Walking Dead has to do with disorder within the family
Right.
and the consequences of human actions, and that mankind has become the monster itself. But it's very interesting, these themes they have in it. For example, if they have, like, for instance, a zombie mother going after her child, well, what is going on in today's society? Very similar parallel things, that mothers are aborting their children. And so the horror of it that you're brought to when you're watching it is actually very prevalent today.
So is it possible that we're trying to work out our issues using our entertainment media?
Could be.
I would say so.
I think it's actually the other way. I think that we've tried very hard to pretend we don't see this stuff and that it doesn't affect us, but that at some level it's absolutely affected us. Like G.K. Chesterton said, we can hurl ourselves against the family in an effort to crush it, but we're only going to be torn to pieces.
Yeah.
The family will endure no matter what. And, I think that it's absolutely essential, like Mary Kate said, to realize these are things that truly deeply affect us, and they tear at the core of who we are as human beings. And even if we convince ourselves it doesn't matter, at some point it's going to out. The truth will out.
As it always does. That's exactly right. And they even show, of course, that we don't believe in an all-knowing corporate body. Because it seems like that's what's happening in our society too, is we're being enticed and incited to kind of put more and more of our stock in entities, and so there's maybe a little bit less trust there, and our entertainment media, as you say, it's almost, I wonder, they're doing this because they know that viewers will watch it. But at the same time, there's also media has always had the ability to present reality to her subjects, right? You can either present distortion or present reality, and it's odd that reality shows are distorted, but these sci-fi shows perhaps are presenting more of reality than we would like to admit.
The great truth within fiction.
Right. Yeah. That's exactly right. So I guess what do we do when we're longing for these heroes? And I think as Catholics, there's an important part here, because we know ultimately, Father Ryan, who the hero is for a dystopian society that's wounded by brokenness and sin.
Well, right, and we know that there's layers of heroes, and that's another thing I like about the shows that we mentioned. Is all of them have layers of heroes. You have in a show like Revolution, you have the guy who seems good and he's kind of an anti-hero. And then you have the one who is really pure, the kind of the girl lead character, and then you have the ones who seem good and sort of are and sort of aren't. And you're seeing the same thing in like Continuum, a show that from Canada that's getting no credibility, or that's getting no credit, but it's an amazingly good show. You have all these layers of heroes. And of course, within faith, we have, of course, Jesus Christ. And then below that, we have the saints, who are the ones who visibly are transforming worlds and transforming societies. And we have John Paul II and Mother Teresa that walked into the 70s and 80s and were sources of gleaming light in a time of great darkness. And then,
of course, we have our stubble-filled selves.
That's right. And there's us under the saints, the ones who are trying to be the saints.
Yeah.
And so I think it says a lot, and it's good for us in terms of developing strategies for evangelization.
Yeah.
Because people are ready to talk about the need for the lone individual to be a hero. And not just to be a hero and God loves you, isn't that sweet?
Yeah.
But you've got to put aside that. You've got to fight the good fight. And it's going to be hard and it's going to hurt and you're not going to want to do it and people are going to hate you for it. But look at what you have to do if you're going to survive the zombie horde.
Right.
You know, you've got to work together and you've got to do the hard work.
So does this mean as a priest I should start bringing zombies into my homilies more?
No,
I don't know, Jeff. What do you think?
definitely
Just
not.
leave the zombies out? I don't know if
Yeah.
I could talk about zombies.
I just, I don't know. I get burned out on them pretty quick.
I flunked zombology. I don't. Or is it Zambo? No, that's for the ice machine that
That's the
smooths the
Zamboni.
ice. Sorry. Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. I don't know. So, well, one of the things that I was amazed at with Man of Steel coming out was all of the prep work that evangelical groups did to show. Well, okay, we're going to, just so you know, we're going to paint Clark Kent, Kal-El, in this messianic light. That he is a hero that is coming to save humanity. And so here are some things that you can do in your church community, in your youth groups and things like that. There were a whole bunch of packets of information, that were available on the internet. And I found that, as well as a workout strategy, which I found really interesting because it's almost a way to say, well, we want you to see that there is a response and there's a reason that we're making Kal-El, Superman, into this Christ figure definitively in the movie, so use that for your own ends. And I think that perhaps maybe that's a little itty-bitty evangelization strategy, and perhaps, I don't know, Father, well, how, I guess concretely, how can we do that? We're going to talk a little bit about evangelization strategies later in the show, but how do we do that?
Well, I mean, you know, we have our standard charisma pattern that we've talked about before, where you help someone to realize that they are a sinner. You help someone to realize that God's mercy is available. You talk to them about how to live the faith. You talk to them about what Christ taught, and then you teach them how to live an integrated life.
Yes.
And so much of that for the last years has been, well, I don't want to seem too hard. I don't want to seem too heavy-handed. I don't want to, wag the finger and seem holier than thou and say, you're a sinner, you're a sinner, you're a sinner.
Yeah.
But I think more and more in this culture, people are ready to look and to believe that sin is real. Even for the last 30 years, we've not wanted to believe that.
Right.
But now you can look and you can look everywhere and you can say sin has to be real. Can you see what's going on in the world?
Yeah.
And the fact is that's a blessing at the same time it's a curse. And, I think people are ready to believe that. And if you can get them into that cycle of charisma,
Yes.
then you're ready to move forward. And so I'm not as big a fan of using a movie, to teach the what of faith, but I'm a big fan of using a movie to say, now, are you willing to see this? And you realize you have your own personal sins that are contributing.
Yes.
And say, don't look so much at the Superman, look so much at the people who needed saving by this God figure.
Right.
They couldn't save the world and create their own utopia. And that's the lesson that needs to be banged into a lot of heads, is that utopia does not come from us. In fact, the readings this coming weekend are about how Jesus did not come to bring smiles and unicorns. He came to bring discord.
Right.
Because the human race cannot save itself.
That's a hard scripture to hear, that Jesus didn't come to bring absolute comfort. He didn't come to bring lazy boys for everybody, but he came to bring discord, because only in discord can the self truly reflect.
Well, and I think he came to bring discord because if we were able to all get along, then we would decide that we, in fact, were God, as we've done for the last 30 years.
Correct.
We've gotten fat and happy believing we are God, and now
which is
we
why
see that it doesn't work.
Which is why we easily hide behind a lot of the isms in our cultures today. Is we can say that we are tolerant of one another, but we're really not exactly tolerant, because we do, as Christians, we must make distinctions about sinfulness, about virtue, and all these things. And the only place that we can come together as humanity is, as you say, realizing that we are sinners in need of a Savior. And
all these shows, really are crisis moments.
Yeah.
They all reveal where we realize that our experiments have failed.
Right.
And what do we do when we realize that our utopian experiments have failed? We go back to what makes us truly great as humans, which is our capacity for humility and our capacity to look toward a greater good, which is Christ.
Right, and that's the great gift of God to His greatest creation to us, is that He gives us the ability to love in more and more and more bold ways that can even surpass our own selfishness of thinking we've got it all figured out. I just love that. That excites me. You going to talk about that in your class, Kathleen?
Perhaps. I'd have to do some
some research.
Yeah.
That's right. Well, let us know what you think. Backchat at CatholicUnderground.com.
From the Catholic Underground.
Alrighty, we are the Catholic Underground. I'm Father Chris Decker, and we thank you for joining us. Alongside of me, we got Kathleen Lee, we got Mary Kate Taylor, we got Jeff Blackwell, and we've got Father Ryan Humphreys. You can always join us, CatholicUnderground.tv for the live show and get started in the chat room. And our show continues. You know, Reddit is one of those things that I don't really visit a whole lot because I have to admit, I'm kind of like Kathleen. I don't really get Reddit. Maybe Father Ryan can give me a tutorial. I just don't use it. But a lot of Reddit users, over 65,000, have flocked to this atheists thread in Reddit. And the idea is something that's been brought about in this thread for quitting pornography and masturbation. Isn't that right, Jeff?
I read it, as a matter of fact.
You read it. Oh, is that how that works? Is that what it means?
Yeah.
Reddit?
Yep, that's what it is.
Oh,
Well,
man.
And,
I feel like a doof. Sorry,
Well,
Jeff.
no, and it wasn't until Father Ryan actually pointed out this link that caused me to read it.
Yeah.
But in short, the thread is challenging people to put aside the sins of self-abuse, either for a set period of time or for good. And believe it or not, people are responding, and it's people from all walks of life. Which
Yeah.
is pretty interesting.
That are kind of like we were talking about in the previous segment, that they're tired of the way things are, and they want to make a change for the good. They want to move from dystopia to utopia, but not trying to create a utopia myself, but realizing perhaps, well, I do need to seek that higher power. Father, this is an interesting thing, because oftentimes when we think about, the internet, we think about places where things like pornography and self-abuse are kind of held up as some sort of a pinnacle of having a computer at my disposal, right?
Yeah, this is one of those things that again, makes Chesterton come to mind, where Chesterton says eventually what will happen is, if pornography and lewdness in society becomes ubiquitous, people will realize sex is no longer fun.
Right.
And once sex is no longer exciting or fun, you find yourself incredibly at the point of despair.
Yeah.
Because this is one of the great things that God has made for us. And when sex is boring, society has really gone downhill. And I think a lot of these people are realizing, just the reality of pornography and masturbation eventually numb you to anything that is good, anything that is truly human. And so whether it's for a religious reason or not, it is in fact a grave evil. And it's one of those things that's written into the natural law.
Yeah.
And so what do you have? You have people who, even atheists, who are being honest with themselves, are saying, this stuff's got to go.
Yeah. And so basically you've got over 65,000 people who are men and women who, for whatever reason, are signing up to take this challenge. And that challenge is to conquer the urge for masturbation, to conquer the urge to use pornography, and as we said at the top of the story, for either permanently or for a period of time. And this is becoming one of those new trends on social media. It kind of reminds me of the movie. There was a movie a while back. I believe it was a Josh Hartnett movie, where he tried to go the entire season of Lent without pornography or without masturbation or without sexual intercourse. And I never saw the movie, so I don't know how it turns out. But my question is this one of those things where it's just a novelty, and so that's why people are having a go, just to see if they have the ability to withstand? Or is there really something of a response taking place in the heart here?
I don't know. My take on the article was that it wasn't really a spiritual thing. It was more like just as a human, I am woe out. This just is, it's like it's no more fun. It's no more.
Yeah, as Father Ryan's saying.
So I think that it tends to open that door for.
Well, I mean, and that's the gift of abstinence, right? And Kathleen, I know in working with theology of the body and things like that, the real gift of abstinence is it makes us long for a proper use of the body.
Right.
It makes us long for a proper use of our sexual gifts, right?
Yeah, it definitely, it does put that longing there, and it puts it into perspective of what it is that
we're made for something.
Right. And it makes it special. If you're bored of it, well, then it's no longer fun. But, if we can make it something that's special, if you put it aside, if you have some time to reflect on it, right, which is what these, this time period is about for these people, whether they know it or not, they're able to look at it a different way.
Yeah.
If you think as well that we've come to the point with the whole sexual revolution that we have every single freedom now,
Right.
and yet people are continuously being broken and are unhappy, and so there's some kind of very telling statement going on here that these people are actually looking for meaning now.
Yeah.
Or
reprieve. Very good question in the chat room. Dom Cobb 43 says, any mention of natural laws misuse of faculties argument in this movement? And Father, I would say probably not. I don't know if they're on that level of intellect in terms of the thread, right?
Well, they are, but they're mostly approaching it from a psychology point of view as opposed to a more of a natural philosophy point of view.
Yeah.
And that opens a question of, should Catholics wander in and start talking religion or start talking natural philosophy? And I think that the way to approach that is no. I think that the way to approach it is to call them, like you say, Father, to bigger challenges. If people are looking to be challenged, then let's call them to be even greater. Let's call them to periodic abstinence, even if they have the option of having sex that is not masturbation.
Yeah.
Let's call people up and beyond mediocrity, because as you move out of mediocrity, you give room for the Holy Spirit to move.
Yeah.
And even if you're not in a state of grace, God can do amazing things with somebody who is trying to be virtuous.
That's right.
Pope Benedict even said that, the controversial statement about condoms in his interview, what he was arguing about is somebody who is, say, even a prostitute, who is trying to do just a little bit better for his clients,
yes,
can be closer to the grace of God than somebody who just doesn't care.
That's correct.
So natural virtue is a good thing.
Right, and that, I guess, is a proper understanding of gradualism, not as a crutch, but as you say, if someone is in an extreme place of serious sin, trying to make a little itty-bitty baby step in the direction of the virtuous, then actually can allow the grace to begin to overflow, correct?
Right. I mean, the virtue of fortitude is always about baby steps.
Right.
We don't conquer any sin by waking up in the morning and saying, I'm not going to sin anymore.
Right.
We conquer it by saying, I'm going to do a little better. I'm going to recognize that temptation a little further off. I'm going to build myself up to be able to say no to temptation in general, gradually, little by little by little, until I do have that saintly self-possession.
That's right. Kathleen, conversion does not take place with a Richard Simmons exercise videotape.
What?
I'm just telling you.
Stop using that with your students.
Sorry.
That's right. Yeah. So, but I think that you're right, Father, and what a great thing. So maybe if there's someone that's listening who's in one of those cycles, to be able, is it okay as a priest, as somebody who's in the know, to say, okay, go to confession, confess the sin, be gentle with yourself, and make small steps forward, and don't be discouraged. Would that be good advice?
I think that would be exactly the advice I would give to people.
Yeah, and so maybe that's what I don't know that we would say this in the Reddit article if we sign up to join or something like that. I don't think that I will. I don't know that it's as you say, Father. I think that maybe there is a good article or a good response to be had simply by meeting it on its own terms, right, and not necessarily in theological ones at this point.
Well, if it's developed by an atheist, it all you can do there is introduce frustration, anxiety. You have a good thing happening on a natural level.
Yeah.
Let's encourage the good.
Yeah.
Rather than forcing it to be something that it's not prepared to be.
That's correct. That's very good. Well, let us know. Maybe you've had experiences in which the Lord has really moved you from a place. Our very own Joe McLean, a good friend of the Catholic Underground, one of his great gifts is to be able to preach about freedom from pornography and things like that, and how it was a vicious cycle in his life. And he's over. I'm trying to remember. He's the Catholic Hack, and I don't know if he still has his podcast, but I know he still blogs and he speaks about that. And so this is a good thing, all in all. I think over on Reddit, right?
Yes.
Very good. Very good. Well, if we want to reach someone other than the choir, we've got to do two things. One, we've got to do social media. Two, we've got to stop doing it badly.
Here.
It's what I call the CD2C principle, the Catholic's default to cheese principle. And so, Father Ryan, you've moved into a new parish, and you're really blowing the doors wide open on trying to design a social media strategy for your parish, maybe for someone's apostolate. And so we thought maybe we would spend some time here on the Catholic Underground talking about that, especially since it's so fresh for you. And so
it is fresh.
We talked about the
very
kerygma
fresh.
first, a little bit earlier, right? And that's kind of the beginning, is you have to find a story to tell.
Yeah, the narrative of the kerygma is one that, of course, Father, you and I talked about at South by Southwest. It's something that's kind of become my go-to way of explaining the faith simply. It's my elevator pitch. You know, you have the sin, you have to recognize your own sin, accept divine mercy. There's the how of faith, the what of faith, and then the integration or the vocation of faith. And that's the basic steps, and you can explain them in much more detail, but basically that's the narrative. That's the story we want to tell, and social media lends itself toward a story like that.
That's right. Jeff is writing these things down feverishly.
I am
I
making
can tell.
notes here.
Yeah. And so once you have the narrative, you've got to have people to help tell the story, I guess, correct, in those many different ways.
That's right. And the reality is nobody is good at everything.
Yeah.
And
That's
so
true.
we all need to reach out and find the right people. Now, there's 5 categories of people that I've kind of looked for.
Father
One
Ryan's
is-
a categorizer.
Yes, I'm a man of lists. One is somebody who can create content, or some people. Now, that could be writers, it could be filmmakers, musicians, artists, whomever. 2 are people to curate content. That's editors. 3, people to create interaction, enthusiastic readers and commenters. You know, if you have a teenager who just loves Facebook, then that person needs to like basically every post I write and say something about it. You know, that's a way of interacting. 4 is people who curate interaction. Those are gardeners or moderators. And then 5, people who create and curate syndication. That's people who are going to share stuff on other sites. You know, I don't need to go to Pinterest with my bulletin, but I would love it if somebody would take my bulletin and post it to their own pin board, or on LinkedIn or on Reddit or on places that just aren't for me to go, but that they are qualified to get to. Those kind of people, awesome.
Yeah.
How do you educate people to do that, though, Father?
A lot of that's natural talent.
Okay.
You know, I mean, you could teach that, but some people just have an eye for the right content of the right story.
Yeah.
You know, and some people have an eye for being an artist or a musician or a filmmaker. And I think if you find them, you can slowly teach them the skills through articles on the web, YouTube videos. But a lot of it's natural talent.
That's right. And then you're able to use that natural talent and to kind of hone it, to say, okay, well, the talents that you have. See, Father Ryan and I go back and forth all the time with design. In fact, Father Ryan redesigning his parish bulletin has kind of given me the impetus to start doing the same thing. And whereas I'm very good with the design aspect of it, as far as actually creating other content, I'm maybe not as good at that, or rather curating it. And so to be able to say, well, here's the piece of the puzzle that I have. Now, where do I go and get the other piece of the puzzle? You know, and perhaps a good analog would be we needed a sound guy for the Catholic Underground, and lo and behold, there happened to be a sound guy available named Jeff Blackwell.
Ta-da!
You know, and so using those natural gifts and talents to make something bigger than ourselves, right, Father?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, being somebody who wants to develop a team, because the reality is social media, unless you're doing it full time, nobody has the time or energy to learn how to do everything. And if you're really going to push it beyond just Facebook and Twitter to YouTube or to SoundCloud, then you've got to have somebody who's an excellent musician, somebody who's the right filmmaker, somebody who can be a DA, you know, or a PA, somebody who can be a writer of blog posts, because that really is a skill. It's something I'm no good at.
Right.
And, you know, you need people to do those things.
And they do exist. And so once you've got your group together, once you've got your ragtag dystopian misfits together who can post and pin, you've got to have goals that are attached to that, right?
Right, and these goals are going to be different for every parish and for every institution and every apostolate. In my parish, my number one goal is to evangelize, which is getting people through those steps of the kerygma.
Yep.
I also want to inform them and educate them. I want to inspire, because that's an important part of it. And then I want to engage or interact with them. I want them to know that they have a home there. And those are generic enough to be applicable to most people. But I mean, we do. If you know what your goals are, then you can say, okay, if I'm going to evangelize, then I have to have a certain amount of this, and I have to have a certain amount of that. If I'm going to educate, I've got to have a certain amount of this, a certain amount of that. But if my number one priority is just to engage or interact, to sell a product or for an event like a Catholicon kind of thing, then obviously I'm going to do very, very different kind of social media and a very, very different set of priorities, you know, if my goals are different.
So as you might expect, your goals would be different depending upon where your parish's maybe needs are or your apostolate's needs are.
Right.
Yeah. And so from the goal setting, once you set those goals, you then have to figure out where on the digital continent you're going to set up your shop and hang out your shingle, right?
I don't have shingles.
And I think we're all glad that you do not have them.
Right.
And I want to start a band right now, Dystopian Misfits. I mean, I love that.
Oh, it's a great name.
Yeah.
Good name.
I like it.
But you're right. You have to choose your social platform because there are exactly 4.7 billion of them. There's one for every person on the planet Earth. You know, so it's difficult to choose. Now, Facebook and Twitter are non-negotiable. Those are the heart of social media. Google Plus is worth your time. It's easy. It's not tough to do. If you're an audio guy, SoundCloud, YouTube, Tumblr. If you're an images person, Instagram, Flickr, Tumblr, Pinterest. If you're a video person, YouTube, Vimeo, Vine, Instagram. I think the biggest thing to remember is that your social platforms need to be part of a larger plan. And so you don't want to simply have a YouTube strategy or a Facebook strategy that has nothing to do with everything else. Nor do you just want Facebook to be what syndicates whatever's new blog post on your website. So your parish bulletin, your parish website, newsletters, pulpit announcements, mail-outs, email campaigns, events, meetups, everything needs to have some part within this plan. And then social becomes a logical kind of place and where things can interact with other non-social things. And it allows you to bring everything to everybody, instead of just trying to say, well, all we care about are the 30-somethings, and so we're going to shoot for this social media.
Yeah.
You know, it's not a great solution.
That almost makes me cross-eyed because it seems like a lot. It seems like an awful lot to get under your umbrella there.
And I think it can be so overwhelming that a lot of people will never start.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's very, very, it's much better just to start something on social and follow the steps we've already outlined than try to do everything at once.
Mm-hmm.
But what I did is I just said, what is the various lists of things I want to do in terms of evangelization? And so I listed like 37 separate things, you know, and social was one of 37 things. And so I just kind of looked at everything, got it all in my head, and said, well, I have a parish bulletin strategy. I have a parish website strategy, and I have a social strategy. And all of them are fairly simple, but all of them kind of, you know, at least keep the other in mind.
Right.
You know, obviously my email bulletin just doesn't have a major complex strategy. It's just
email
send
the bulletin
to people. Yeah. You know, I mean, that's as far as the strategy goes. But I do want to remember that, you know, that needs to be part of a plan so that it goes out at the same time that the blog post goes live, and that that it's posted on YouTube at the same time, or it's posted on Facebook at the same time.
Yeah. So you have to get all of these things done after the goals and the social platforms. You also have to worry about temporal goods, right?
Yeah, you have budgets, you have assets. I'm not a very good graphic designer, so I have to, if there are memes out there that are already good, or if there's inspirations that I can give to my director of evangelization, you know, those are important things to find. And also making sure I find the right gifts and talents. You know, I mean, I've got people who are excited but may not be good at a certain thing, and then I have people who are really good at a certain thing that may not be excited. You know, and so I'm trying to figure out what my resources are and work them together.
And that can be very difficult too, because especially when you have somebody who's a volunteer, trying to encourage them at the same time, but saying, no, your gifts may not lie here, but let's see where we can get you where you'll synchronize. And that can be hard. That's just in managing people. That's a difficult thing. Yeah. And then of course, after all of this work is done, you have to basically get out your big calendar and develop a plan of how you will post, a posting plan, if you will.
Yeah, that's kind of the fruit of the entire process. You know, after we've thought it all, we've got it all in our heads, we've got the ideas we want to do, we've got our priorities in order. Then we have to decide what kinds of things we're going to post and how often we're going to post them and who is going to post them and who is going to follow up and who is going to be the one who removes the responses and comments from trolls and things like that. And all of those things depend, again, on your budget, on your assets, and on how much energy you want to spend on each kind of different platform and what your goal is. If I don't really have any desire to interact with trolls on Facebook,
Right.
someone else may want to have that discussion with an angry Protestant, an angry atheist. That has no value for me at all in my plan. And so my plan is, if I get an obnoxious post, they gets deleted and we move on with our lives.
Yeah.
Another person like at the blog that Brandon Vaught established.
Yes.
That's the whole raison d'etre of that. So he's got an entirely different approach to dealing with interaction with people who may be antagonistic, and so that has to play into that plan where you say, this is our posting strategy and this is how it's going to be done. Right. And we need to decide right up front how we're going to deal with trolls, right up front how we're going to deal with somebody who is angry, right up front with somebody who's going to post off topic, things like that.
And so then once you develop this posting plan, you just get in the routine of doing it and then see where it goes. And then I would guess you would come back to it periodically.
Yeah, I mean, I'm evaluating it 6 months and 1 year right now. I mean, I might, after I think we get things where we need to be, then we may not have to evaluate as often.
Right. That's a good thing. Phew, that's a lot there, Kathleen.
That is a lot. It hurts my brain.
That's right. Kathleen has obviously had her first week back at school, huh?
Yes, and the children's come tomorrow.
And the children come tomorrow. Yes, indeed. Now with this whole thing, it could be tempting to say, well, it's just too big, I'm not going to do it. But others have actually begun to forge the ground ahead of us, haven't they? So we have other articles. Isn't that right, Father?
Yeah, there are 3 other articles that we need to make note of because they're just spectacular. One is by our buddy at Austin Catholic New Media, Cristobal Almanza, on using Instagram and evangelization, which is just really well put together. The second comes from Catholic Tech Talk. It's about leveraging your parish bulletin for parish website content. That's a website that gets very, very little credit for being an excellent source of good ideas. And the third is Catholic Lane. That was a big inspiration for the plan that I established, the one we just talked about. And so all 3 of those articles are in the show notes as well. Also, if you're looking for software to help you, there is software out there that will plan posts in advance, or that will let you have all your social media in one window so you can just go through it all quickly and not have to log into 15 different sites.
Wow.
Buffer.app at bufferapp.com is great. And Hootsuite, Hoot Suite, really good choices. Fairly inexpensive and good for managing for people who have a small business or a parish or an apostolate and don't have a full staff to work with.
I was going to ask if there was an app for that, and obviously there are a couple. So
yeah,
that's just great. So the show notes are where?
The show notes are at CatholicUnderground.com, and if you click on the latest episode, which will be up probably in the next few days, you'll be able to get all of those links that we're mentioning. So that's at CatholicUnderground.com, as it always is. And so now we go to that part of the show we like to call
the CU Pick of the Week.
All right, and since Father Ryan is back with us, why don't we go to you for your first pick of the week there?
I am honored, sir. My pick of the week is Squarespace. I've been developing a new website for the parish. I've always been a big fan of Squarespace. I've used it for my former parish. It is a fully hosted site that has really high-end software templates. It's beautiful. $8 a month, $16 a month, or $24 a month are the 3 plans they have, which seems a little pricey, but it's really not. After you think about having to worry about not having to worry about security, that's unlimited bandwidth and unlimited storage. So if you're a podcaster and your files are less than 20 megs, you can upload as 40 gigs, 40 terabytes of them. They don't care as long as the files are under 20 megs. So it's a really, really good solution for people who want a good website that's not going to crash, that's not going to have /dot effect. It seems a little unintuitive and confusing at first, but it's actually insanely powerful. It's very easy, very fast. The only bug is that you can't access your file structure directly. So if you can't FTP in, that's an annoyance. It's a small annoyance, but it's annoyance. All the same, squarespace.com. It's a great site, and I'd highly, highly recommend you check it out.
And this, as you say, is what you're using for your parish website at present.
I used it for my former parish website, and I'm using it for the new one, and I'll be using it for the school website as well.
Oh, very cool. So you're going all in for Squarespace.
I'm all in for Squarespace.
Maybe that could be like an ad. We can do. I don't know.
I don't know.
But we can't call it that.
They'd have to give us money if it was an ad.
They sure would. Kathleen Lee, you're going back to school and already you're thinking about your pick of the week, which is
Yeah, it's
getting away.
Yeah, I was asked by another teacher. She wanted to involve prayer in her classroom more. She teaches math.
Oh, awesome.
And she
wow,
said, yeah.
math and prayer.
I
And
need
she-
prayer with that.
Oh,
Yeah, so she asked me. She said, "Do you have any any suggestions?" And I thought, well, I don't know. So I went to the Google, and I stumbled upon 3-minute retreats, daily online prayer,
Oh.
and it's really cool. It's put out by Loyola Press, and it asks you, take a minute to breathe, prepare yourselves, and then it gives you a little scripture reading. Then a reflection, and then some questions for you to ask yourself, and then a prayer. And it's got sweet background music, and you go at your own pace. So it could take 3 minutes, it could take longer, but it also comes in an app, which I just downloaded on my phone.
Nice.
It's really cool. Just a little 3-minute retreat.
Mm-hmm.
Get away from it and spend
And now
some
let's
time
have
and-
some math.
and now to math.
That's right.
So anyway, it was something that I proposed to her, but it's something that I'd definitely be using for my own self.
Oh, sure.
Just because I love when stuff like that is just handed to you in a little package. There you go,
Yeah.
do it, and I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah. So is this something that if there's an app that you can do maybe on your way to work?
Sure.
Or,
Yeah. It's only 3 minutes, so wherever you have 3 minutes to spare,
Yeah.
there you go. And it's different every day. It's daily.
Nice.
So it's pretty neat. That's 3-minute retreats by Loyola Press.
That's right. If it were a meme, we'd be saying, you're doing it right.
Yay.
Reflection, you're doing it right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mary Kate?
Yeah, mine is the Perseid meteor shower. That's going to be happening tonight between about 10 p.m. and 4 p.m. Well, no, is it a.m.?
AM.
Yeah, I think
4
it's
a.m.
Yeah, a.m. Yeah,
That comes
obviously.
after PM.
Well, obviously.
Yeah.
But I was reading something and I read the wrong thing. But anyways, one cool place that you can go to watch it is the Highland Road Observatory. I don't know if y'all have heard of that. Have you ever been there?
Yeah, the
yeah.
Highland Road
Yeah, it's pretty
Observatory
cool.
is in Baton Rouge.
It's in Baton Rouge.
Yeah, so
So
if
if
you're not
you're-
in Louisiana, you'll
you-
have to find your
Right,
own
you have to find your
observatory.
own. That's right.
Sorry.
And also, I found this really interesting thing. It's basically called Google Poetry. I don't know if you've heard about it, but it's basically just these people that kind of collect these random searches in your search engine, and when you put something in, you'll have like a list of things drop down for
Yeah.
like
Oh,
previous
yes.
searches.
Uh-huh.
And so it's interesting the type of questions that people are asking, and it's oddly poetic. So if you want, you can go on Tumblr and you can find these Google Poetry, and some of them are actually kind of poignant. It's very interesting. So I would say that's an interesting one if you want to check that out as well.
Very cool. Jeff Blackwell, who probably doesn't do Google Poetry, but you do have a pick of the week.
Not often, but I do have a pick of the week. Yes, mine was about trying to save a little money on my cable bill, and it's more or less a link. This was an article that was written back in April, but
It
You know.
still holds up.
yeah, I'm one of the old guys. I'm a little bit slow, but we're getting there. But it's great. A great article on how to eliminate cable TV or at least lower your cable bill. So it's basically an article titled "How I Cut the Cable.com." So check that out. It's pretty neat.
Very cool. My pick of the week is a book. And of course, as you know, I am an amateur comicer. And so Stan Lee is, as he is for most people who read and try to write and draw comics, he's kind of the pinnacle, right? He's he's the head guy. And so he has actually been writing a series of books on his craft.
Wow.
And one of them in the series is Stan Lee's How to Write Comics. Now, Father Ryan can tell you, I don't fancy myself a writer. I draw a lot better than I write.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you want a behind the scenes of what makes Stan Lee's epic brain tick and steal a little brain juice for yourself, then this is a handy book. Now, it's very elementary, but since I can't really write comics very well, it's a good book because it takes you step by step into what makes storytelling with sequential art work. How the story has to be arrayed and how it has to be set out so that you can tell the story past just what you learned in English class. So I'll put that in the show notes. Stan Lee's How to Write Comics is my pick of the week.
Nice pick.
Yeah, exactly. If you have a pick of the week, you can let us know at backchat@catholicunderground.com. That's the best way to let us know all the stuff that you do. And of course, you do that. Now, Father Ryan is trying desperately to get his social media strategy working, and so Father Ryan, you'd like people to go to your brand new Facebook page, wouldn't you?
I'd like people very much to go to my Facebook page, bit.ly/MBICFB, Minor Basilica of the Immaculate Conception Facebook. bit.ly/MBICFB. Please like my page.
So what are you up to now with likes?
We're just crossing the 205 mark.
Oh,
Which it's small, but I mean, we only have about 600 families, and I've only mentioned it today, so we're doing good.
oh, that's not too bad at all. So yeah. I think my parish's webpage has maybe 37. So I mean, I guess you could go like mine too. That's
Well, yeah.
Facebook.com/STJSTP.
Please
Yeah.
like mine too.
Yeah, but like Father's more because he's actually got a thing he's working on. He's got a deadline that he's working on.
my.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I what do you think about real quick about churches getting on Facebook pages? Is this helpful at all? I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, well, with a Holy Day of Obligation coming up this week, I mean, that's something people have said, Father, why haven't you put that on the page yet? It's
Right.
It's interesting. I think so.
Yeah, I think it's useful too, especially whenever hurricanes come around. Facebook was one of those places that just about everybody had access to.
Yeah.
And so I was putting up announcements on Facebook because they couldn't get to my website, but they could get to Facebook. Everybody's checking
that makes
Facebook
sense.
status through a hurricane. So I pray God that we have none, but just in case. And so Jeff, we do actually have ways that folks can help us, right?
Yeah, portions of the Catholic Underground are brought to you by audibletrial.com/Catholic Underground. That's audibletrial.com/Catholic Underground.
That's right. Thanks, Jeff. And so for the show notes that accompany this episode and our podcast, as we said at the top of the show, you can find out more about our apostolate. You can find out ways to connect with us on Twitter and on Facebook by going to CatholicUnderground.com. We post all of our episodes there, and now that we're back in video with you, it takes a little while to edit, but we actually are posting the high-definition video, which is different than what you see if you're watching us live on YouTube. And so you can get the high-definition video with all the graphics and fun things by going to CatholicUnderground.com, and then you click on the most recent episode. And that's the way to do it. So let's see. Jeff Blackwell, you're here. You're our technical director for the CU. You have 2 dogs at the Blackwell Communications Group, and I met them this week.
Sailor and Max.
Sailor and Max, yes indeed, and quite fine dogs they are.
Thank you,
and
Father.
You can find Jeff Blackwell at jeffblackwell.us and on Twitter at jeffblackwellus. Yeah. Kathleen Lee is our faith ninja. She's at Kathleen YABR on Twitter. Still?
Tis true, yes.
Tis true. Do you have more followers on Twitter now?
Yeah, random people follow me. I like it.
Nice.
I like it a lot.
Random for you. We've also got Mary Kate Taylor. She's an evangelist, and in her spare time, she teaches Zumba to Canadian geese. Thanks, Mary Kate.
There's some geese crossing the road today.
Oh, there you go. And new clients. And Father Ryan. Father Ryan is at FR Humphreys on Twitter. He's back, folks. And we want to thank you, Father Ryan, for being with us.
Been my pleasure.
And you know me, I'm Father Chris Decker. You can follow me on Twitter at Digital Catholic. Join us on the interwebs at CatholicUnderground.tv for even more from the See You Later. Thanks for tuning in and hanging out with us on the digital continent. We're Catholic Underground, and we're Faith Gone Digital. We will see you next time.
From the Catholic Underground.